What's up everybody, this is the Lenovo ThinkVision P34W-20. This is an ultra-wide Quad HD display. It's using an IPS panel, so you'll have better viewing angles with IPS and to a degree better brightness than the average non-IPS panel such as TN and VA. But in true form, like any other IPS panel, the contrast is not fantastic, and the representation of dark colors, such as like just strictly black or even like a deep purple, is a little bit off on this display. Now it is factory calibrated out of the box. Lenovo even provides you with a factory calibration report so you can see how they calibrated it. That is Greek to me. I don't understand any of it. What I did is I plugged it in and I compared it to my 27-inch Razer Raptor and my 27-inch Dell, both Quad HD displays, IPS displays, and I was like, what is going on here? Because it doesn't look quite as good. And I'm not saying this is a bad monitor by any means. What I mean is, you may not like that factory calibration. You may want to do your own calibration. So I started poking around, again, not really understanding the nuance of adjusting color. Like, I don't know what hue is. I thought hue was the guy from Star Trek. So I don't really know anything about hue and contrast and all this stuff. So I started fiddle farting with all the meters and trying to adjust the colors, and I ended up just going back to how things were out of the box because I couldn't get it quite right. It also seems like the colors, the way they're represented, are just changing over time. Like 1 hour purple will be purple, and then the next hour I'll get a Teams notification which has purple in it, and it will be like a deeper purple. So it's just a little bit odd. It could just be a bad unit, but other than that, it's actually pretty awesome. Now this is for business professionals, so it's capped at 60 Hertz. It doesn't have a high response time either, so it's not really for gaming. I did some gaming on it just because I can't help myself, and it was fine. If you're primarily going to game on a 34-inch ultra-wide, this isn't the monitor for you. If you're going to primarily work on it, and then you want to play some games here and there, maybe even like some static type games, or more static type games like a dungeon crawler or an RTS, you'd probably be fine because you don't need the fast motion, the fast response time in a game that's more of an FPS or a competitive FPS or even a third-person shooter. Okay, so what you're seeing here though may look a little bit weird. So this blue background, this is my desktop, but this little icon here with a link, or this part of the window, this is picture-in-picture mode. This is my Mac. So I have my Mac hooked up over HDMI and then my desktop hooked up over DisplayPort. Now there's a really cool menu system. I'll show you that in a moment. And then I'll show you a tour of the entire device. But the thing about the menu is that you could very easily select your source for that picture-in-picture or just turn off picture-in-picture. There's also a built-in eKVM, so you can easily switch between machines and bring your peripherals with you. So that's a really nice to have if you're in a business environment and you happen to be using multiple devices. And if you have multiple sources as well, like maybe you want to have, oh, and there's a virtual picture-in-picture too. That is pretty neat. So it's hard to load it up and demonstrate on the video because it's just not going to look right. But basically what will happen is you could say, okay, don't give me the Mac or the second source. Give me the same source, but split it in two. Now a 34-inch ultra-wide is effectively 1.5 27-inch regular displays. So it's not going to be weird to split the display in half and have Windows see it as two separate monitors, but you can do that. So you get that fluidity of snapping windows into place into two separate screens, but it's only one actual display, if that makes sense. So one cable into your source, let's say it's a desktop, this thing can simulate having two separate displays. It's very cool. So the next thing I'm going to show you is that menu system and how to do all that stuff. Then I'll show you a tour of the product. It'll be off. I'll just kind of put some nice lighting together and hover down and show you a video tour of the device, how you can adjust it and spin it and how you can plug things in. And then that's it. That's the video. So stick around for that part. I'll be right back. All right, folks, this is that on-screen menu that I promised. Now you have 5 buttons at the bottom. One is power, so don't press that if you're interested in getting into the menu system. You press the menu system right here, and then right below are menu options. You can go back into the menu, so one step out, or you can go up and down. And I do get the up and down confused because they're just so hard to read, these little arrows. But anyhow, so in here you do have some control over the monitor where you can control brightness, contrast, volume for the built-in speakers. Now I didn't cover the built-in speakers a moment ago because they're not good. So I just stopped using them and I went straight to my own discrete speakers. There's an advanced settings option where you can control the contrast with a dynamic contrast. You can also override and drop the timing down, but I didn't notice a huge difference in the response time. There's also different color presets, so RGB, DCI-P3. Now, out of the box, it was set to DCI-P3. You can see that the colors pop a lot more when you're in DCI-P3 mode. Well, hopefully you can see that, but the brightness goes down tremendously. There's also BT.709, and then your classic neutral, warm, cool, and then custom, which gives you a little bit more control. Okay, so scenario mode out of the box, it was in panel native. I pushed it to image creation because I felt it was brighter. Brightness was a problem with this device for me out of the box. There's also HDR10 support. It's Windows, so HDR not really amazing unless you're watching HDR content, which I don't do a whole lot of. So I messed with it, turned it on, and fiddled around, but ultimately I wasn't super impressed. Now, this is where it starts to get wild. So you can select your input. There's an automatic mode, so you don't have to be explicit about your primary input. There's also daisy chaining, so you can connect other types of ThinkVision monitors to it. Here is that eKVM that I mentioned, so you can bring your keyboard and mouse with you when you change inputs. So that's just awesome. I'm not sure you guys are familiar with KVM switches. They're not as popular as they used to be, but very cool stuff. And then this is where you can also piggyback onto which source. USB charging and super USB-C charging, which I honestly didn't bother trying to use. I just hesitate. Okay, so Ethernet is an option through USB-B, USB-B making an appearance, and USB-C. And the most wild part, this is the picture-in-picture option. So first you have True Split. That's what I was talking about, where you can separate the monitor in two. So if you turn that on, you get to simulate having two displays through one single cable. Picture-in-picture. So picture-in-picture is what I'm using right now. And before I turn it off, let me come down here and go to Swap. So I can change what's the primary and what's the secondary. Let me go back in here. See how I get confused with the up and down? All right, and then I can also go to source and I can choose where to put it. I can change the position, and then I can just go here to foreground and I can choose which input to make that picture-in-picture. I'm gonna go ahead and you can also adjust the audio source too, which I totally forgot about and just noticed. Okay. I'm going to turn it off, and now my screen will refresh and it'll go back to just being my primary PC. And as far as other options go, you can change the language, you can change the timeout and the positioning and the transparency. And that is it. All right, now let's take a tour of the device itself. The first thing that I want to point out is this tray at the bottom. So you have your display with your stand, more on that in a moment, but right down here you see the red that surrounds it. This is a pen tray. So you could put just a standard pen right in here and then easily grab it. Now this entire base is made of a very thick ABS plastic. It is rigid and tight and heavy, which is important since this display itself is also quite heavy. Now connecting this stem to the, I don't know the actual technical language here, but this thing, the arm, connected to the base, very simply just 3 screws, you twist them on and you're done. And then you have this knob right here with a nice elastic rubber. You can do is take your cables, connect them to the bottom, and then wrap them through this to give them a nice tight connection and keep things a little bit more clean and organized. For me, that's a problem. I'm constantly disorganized and looking for ways to clean up my desk. It's like I clean up my desk and then the next day it's like, what the heck happened? I gotta clean my desk again. So for me, that's been really helpful. Now we have to talk about the ergonomics of this display because they really are special. So first of all, you have a lot of opportunity to rotate, okay? So you can move the monitor very easily with one hand, just rotate it around. I don't know technically how far it goes, but if you can see the lines here, it goes from here to there, bam. And you do the same thing this way. You can also lift it up and down. Okay, so I'm gonna take it now and just go up and down, up. This is one of the most flexible displays that I've ever seen. Then you can also rotate it this way, which is not unique, but it is uncommon. So if you need to really get in there and adjust your cables, You can just bend it down. Now, one of my monitors is a Razer Raptor, and what I love about that monitor is how easy it is to actually flip this all the way over and get a nice 90 degrees out of it. Let's take a look at the I/O. Okay, so this is the underside of the display, and what you have going on here is a ton of I/O. Not only because it's a good monitor, so there's going to be opportunity for HDMI and DisplayPort, right? That's your standard stuff. But also that picture-in-picture to support that, the eKVM, eKVM. In order to support that as well, you need all the input for it. So on the far right, we have the power, no surprises here. And then this is where the action really begins. So what you have here are two HDMI inputs, your DisplayPort, USB-C. This is that USB-B port. So if you're not familiar with USB-B, it's sort of like the output from a printer is this shape, all right? USB-B, another display port, Ethernet, and then two USB ports, and that's for your KVM. So again, if you're looking for something that's really business oriented, this is where it's at. So here's an example of when an ultra-wide monitor can really come in handy. I'm currently editing a video. I'm just kind of creating my layers and stacking things together, and I can see more of the timeline while zoomed in than I would if I were on a typical aspect ratio display. So I can hit zoom a couple of times, and even with a decent level of zoom, I'm not sure exactly what level of magnification I'm on, I can still see so much of what's going on. So it allows me to sort of keep more of my project in my scope when I have this ultra wide. So that's a really valuable thing. So now if you're going to be editing video and you care a lot, right, you really want to make something that's just super on point, like maybe you do videos for one of these fancy YouTubers, then you're going to be paying attention to the way the colors are represented. And you also want that ultra wide so you can see more of what's going on. It'll make you more productive. But if you're into gaming, then this aspect of it won't matter as much. Like you may be more interested in high refresh rates and very fast response time, right? So low milliseconds, and less interested in color reproduction. And it's that cost benefit analysis that everyone who's looking at ultra wides should be doing, because it all depends on your use case. Now this ThinkVision is really for the professional who may be doing this type of video editing or other types of modeling, but not as much interested in the video games. Therefore the 60 Hz refresh makes sense. All right, friends, so there you have it, the Lenovo P34W-20. You can't imagine how many times I had to record this video because I couldn't get that right, but I've heard more complicated model numbers. It's a good monitor. It's going to get you pretty far if you're in a business environment. I just wish I could get the colors and the brightness and all of that better figured out. And it would be ideal to get a 34-inch gaming-oriented monitor with IPS into the shop here. But yeah, those are a lot of money. Big thanks to Lenovo for helping us out. They actually provided us with this monitor for review. I do have to send it back, otherwise I'd give it away, or maybe I'd use it for a long time and then give it away. But in either case, it's going back to the manufacturer. So thanks again. I do have a Viotech 34-inch ultra wide that just came in today. It's a VA panel. It's for gaming. I'm going to hook that one up and give you guys a video on that. So thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Cheers.